Go. Our question of inquiry is, how is Princess Campbell recognised for her anti-discrimination activism in Bristol? Here on the slide is a photograph of the plaque commemorating the bus boycott of 1963, which we are shown in our workshop. We noticed that the forefront of the plaque is composed of the influential men who were involved in organising the bus boycott. We wanted to explore those that were seen in the background and who participate and support political movements in the everyday, rather than those who were the face of significant events. We especially wanted to look into the women who we felt were underrepresented, which led to our exploration of influential female anti-discrimination activists in the 1960s. It was intriguing to follow female participation in multiple different contexts, such as in the bus boycott, the manufacturing industry, and the healthcare system, and the lack of recognition seen.
In this flow diagram, we have used changes in colour to represent our slight changes in direction with our rabbit hole, eventually leading us to form our final question. It is interesting to see the comparison between the coverage of the bus boycott we observed at the beginning of the rabbit hole, which is quite extensive, with the coverage of Princess Campbell and her activism initiatives throughout her life, which took us some digging into. This for us opens a question about how women, specifically exploring Princess Campbell here, are recognised for their work, specifically focusing on anti-discrimination activism here, both in the quantity and type of recognition. Notably, our end result leads us to a nicher question than what we were researching at the beginning, moving from looking for women involved in the bus boycott to the observed recognition for women involved in activism movements we see in Bristol today, focusing on Princess Campbell.
Starting at the beginning, in one of the workshops on industrialisation, we discussed the bus boycott of 1963. The boycott occurred as a result of the Omnibus Bus Company refusing a West Indian, Guy Bailey, employment as a conductor. It follows a common saying at the time of no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, that discriminated against certain groups of people. It led to many West Indians and others in Bristol boycotting the buses until the company made a change to this rule. We tried to research further into those involved in the bus boycott protests, particularly women involved, as we noticed there was little mention of them in the academic sources and articles we had read, and in photos and artwork commemorating the event, but we struggled. There were only mentions of men and their involvement in negotiations between Bristol Omnibus Company and the Busmen's Union, highlighting it was only men that seemed to play a key role.
Even after researching women involved in the bus boycott, it gave us little information about influential female figures. By the back door, we did some research on influential women in Bristol in the 1960s, knowing that the bus boycott occurred in 1963. Bristol museums have a web page recognising 19 influential Black women in Bristol, and Princess Campbell was listed. She caught our attention because she arrived in Bristol from Jamaica in 1962, the year before the boycott. So we continued to find out if she had any influence or participation. Princess confirmed she participated in the boycott in an interview conducted with Bristol museums, and she speaks of witnessing the racism that Black people experienced in Bristol at the time, which led her to take part in the protests.
Also, following the workshop on industrialisation, we took an interest in the manufacturing industries in Bristol, and so it was interesting to find out that Princess Campbell worked at the Wills Tobacco Factory, and she was the first Black employee there. Linking to the question of women in the background, the Wills girls working at the factory, which we found referenced in the M-Shed, supported the company during the war period, with when men away, received little recognition for their role in the success of the company. A company, thanks to its profits, were able to invest in Bristol, in buildings like the Wills Memorial Building at the University of Bristol. Whilst this isn't anti-discrimination activism, it is an interesting link to both of our themes of industrialisation and the lack of recognition we have found on the role of women in the city, which has formed our question.
When we arrived in Bristol, we thought the M-Shed Museum would be a great place to start for sourcing more information on our interests. In the M-Shed, we discovered an exhibition section dedicated to Princess Campbell and her various anti-discrimination activism exploits. For example, being the first Black worker in Wills Tobacco Factory, fighting prejudice to become a ward sister, and playing a role within the United Housing Association. Through her hard work and dedication, she was appointed ward sister of Glenside Psychiatric Hospital. This discovery of Princess Campbell made us reflect more upon our initial inquiries about her, and made us reflect why she wasn't represented as much in the readings about the bus boycott. We wanted to see, therefore, how she was represented in Bristol and the work she did in other ways.
We then decided to follow this line of inquiry further and went to visit the bus boycott plaque at the bus station. However, we found there wasn't much information there, and it was only a plaque. There wasn't any female representation, one female in the background, highlighting how women were rather much underrepresented. The plaque was unveiled by members of the original campaign: Paul Stevenson, Guy Bailey, Roy Hackett, and others from the Bristol bus boycott group joined George Ferguson, the Mayor of Bristol, to take part in the anniversary.
Upon doing research online, we found that a student accommodation building in Bristol, built by Unite Students Company, was named after Princess Campbell. We decided to visit this housing, called Campbell House. We were rather disappointed to find that other than a yellow sign that informed us this was Campbell House, there was no other recognition or signage around the building to tell us either more about her or why it was named after her. Researching this further on our return from Bristol, we found that the accommodation was built on the site of the former Bristol Royal Infirmary building, which was also where she formerly worked.
Additional research led us to find out about Princess Campbell's role in the United Housing Association, which was established in 1985 and was Bristol's first Black housing association. Key activists in the bus boycott, such as Owen Henry, founded the association. The UHA were instrumental in helping dealing with the awful housing conditions and lack of equal access to rented accommodation that faced Black and minority ethnic residents in St. Paul's. The organisation was renamed in 2021 to Brighter Places as a result of the merging of the UHA and another organisation. On their own website, there is no recognition of Princess Campbell playing a role in setting up the UHA. Yet there is mention of this in the MSHED. Why has this history of the very organisation been filtered? It has made us reflect once again why women are still not getting the full recognition they deserve for causes that they are involved in. With further research into Princess Campbell's representation in Bristol, we found that she'd been commemorated for her work and contributions at the hospital as the first Black ward sister, with officers at Southmead Hospital in Bristol named after her, unveiled by her son. It finally shows how she is getting the recognition for all her hard work and gaining the position. Within the interviews she completed with Bristol museums, she talks about being passed up for promotion despite having all the qualifications she needed. It wasn't until all of her colleagues and peers complained to the matron about the injustice that the Princess Campbell was called in, and the matron apologised to her and told her she would apply for the next opening for a ward sister, as the job would be given to her, highlighting the struggles that she had to overcome.
When researching Princess as the first Black ward sister, we actually discovered a woman named Mary Tanner. Tanner claimed she was in fact Bristol's first Black ward sister at Bristol Royal Infirmary 8 years before Princess Campbell. A book by Julie Sudbury called Other Kinds of Dreams discusses the political activism of Black women and the way in which this is seen and appreciated in the wider world. Sudbury discusses the subsequent academic studies that centralise on Black men following the migration of Black workers to the UK, and how Black women never quite came to the forefront of the academic imagination. Our inquiry has allowed us to not only delve into Bristol and the bus boycott, but also those who have been more hidden in the background. Women like Princess Campbell have been instrumental behind the scenes and have put in time and dedication into anti-racism activism to bring about a change in Bristol. Princess Campbell's work led to her being awarded an MBE in 2011. This question could be researched further through visiting the hospital where she worked, interviewing those working there to see if they are aware of her work and whether this is recognised in the hospital. Questionnaires could be used to compare how well known she is to other Bristol Black activists. We would also continue to research online and may even take another trip to Bristol to look at other ways she is recognised in the city. Thank you for listening.